3DS prices are out of control. Over the past few years, the 3DS market has gone through the roof. Everybody wants one and Nintendo doesn't make them anymore, leading to prices to go insanely high. Nowadays, you have to spend a ton of money, often well over MSRP, for a 5-year-old system. It can be really hard to find something even remotely considered a deal in this economy. So today, we're going to look at a few pros and cons of getting a Japanese 3DS and what features you should look for. But first, where do we even look to buy one? Well, I'm going to spoil it for you. Chances are, unless you happen to find something locally, you're ending up on eBay, 9 times out of 10. There's a whole host of Japanese sellers on that site, so chances are you're going to find what you want, if not a few times over. In fact, I often find that with the Japanese sellers, they often have way better photos and are way better at answering questions than most of the other people on eBay. I'd actually consider it one of the few times I actually enjoyed visiting that website. Now this part goes true for most of the sellers I saw on there, but the one I bought it from was super good about answering my questions, sending any photos I asked for, and overall was just a very, very nice person. Them being so helpful was super important because I was looking for one in particular. I was looking specifically for a new Nintendo 3DS LL, pretty much the XL we have here in the States. I wanted it to be in good condition for sure, but what I was really after was one with dual IPS screens. And this sounds simple enough, I didn't care about color or anything, but if you look around, it is actually super hard to find devices that meet that criteria. But after a good while looking around, seeing what people had to offer, I ended up with this. It's a pearl white new Nintendo 3DS LL with my dual IPS screens. But before we talk about the screens, I'd like to talk about what to expect as terms of quality when you purchase one, at least in my anecdotal experience. When it comes to how the device actually looks and what condition it is, I was blown away when I picked this thing up. I was not expecting to get a device of this quality. Now you can see a little bit of yellowing here, and there is some on the inside here. But besides that, there is only a couple minor scratches, one being right along here. In fact, if you look here, you can see that there really isn't any scratches on the screen. There's a couple tiny micro ones that you can't really see, but everything, if you're seeing anything, is just my fingerprints possibly, or just a speck of dust. This screen's immaculate. Now to say I was surprised at just how good this thing looked out of the box would be just a massive understatement. The seller that I bought it from, as well as most of the other Japanese sellers, have this weird rating system. It started at the top with mint, and then it went down to about good. So I kind of figured, that's the scale good to bad. If I buy a good one, it'll actually be in bad quality. Well, mine was labeled as excellent condition, which wasn't near the top, it was kind of perfectly in the middle. So I wasn't expecting a whole lot. I was expecting, a few dings, a few scratches, pretty noticeable stuff. But looking over it for the first time, I was shocked at just how little there was to complain about. I honestly think this is as close to mint as I was ever going to get to a 3DS. Now I can't say this will be the same for everyone, but in my personal experience here with this one example, it actually was very descriptive of what I got. So hopefully it's the same for you guys if you end up buying one. I was just so surprised at the quality, considering that when I went here in the States to like a game store or maybe looked on Facebook Marketplace, there was nothing good. All of it looked like garbage and all of it was super expensive. I do have to say that the value that this device provided at its price point far outweighs any of the negatives that come with it being a Japanese 3DS. The cherry on top of which is the fact that it has dual IPS displays. So now, why are the screens being IPS a big deal? Well, it has to do with a couple things. It has to do with the color accuracy and viewing angles. So now, finding an actual dual IPS display, the odds are pretty rare. Most 3DSs are either both TN displays or either top or bottom IPS and TN. It is actually kind of rare to find a dual IPS 3DS. But why exactly would you want to spend a little more possibly and get an IPS display? I'll show you. So right here we have an original 3DS XL, and right here we have the Japanese one I just got. It's a new Nintendo 3DS XL, and this one has the TN displays, and this one has IPS displays. You can kind of see for color accuracy, it is a lighter red on this side compared to a richer color. I found in general for most games to be that the colors stand out and pop a little bit more with the IPS displays, but you can really tell the difference when you tilt the displays. So as I tilt this one here, you can see that it very quickly fades to white. Obviously you're not going to see this when you're playing it, but you can kind of see that it very quickly loses all color saturation. Whereas when I tip the IPS displays, it will a little bit because of the camera, but you can see it holds its color quite well compared to a comparable tilt on the original 3DS. Even right here, you can still see the colors super well. As I bring this one over, you cannot quite say the same. Now, is this worth spending extra on? That is totally up for you to decide. I do notice that even just looking at it, this one has a much warmer tint, which could be good if, let's say, you're playing in bed, but in general, I like the colors and the details more in the IPS displays. So if you personally are looking for dual IPS displays, it helps to have a photo taken at a super steep angle like this one here. As you can see, 3DS 1 has an IPS display and 2 clearly doesn't. So if you can have your seller send a photo, or if you see it in person, feel free to look at it like this or have them send a photo like this. You'll very easily be able to tell if it's IPS or not. Now all this so far sounds great. But what are the drawbacks of getting a Japanese 3DS? Because there are some major ones. And while they can be countered, I feel that you should know about them. So one of the drawbacks is that the 3DS is region locked. Everything is going to be in Japanese. The settings menu, all the on-screen buttons, the keyboard, and there really is no option to change it to English from the box. At least for a while, you're going to be pretty much forced to use like a photo translating app, something that'll take a photo and then turn it all to English on screen. But unless you know your way around the system, you're going to have to deal with this all the time. Now, while the methods I use doesn't correct that aspect, I don't find that to be nearly as big a deal as the fact that out of the box, you will not be able to play any games besides Japanese games, and as such, you will only be able to play them in Japanese. As you can see here, I boot up Mario Maker and all of my text is in Japanese. And if you're planning on playing any story-based games or something like that, it's just not going to work out. And another problem is you'll only be able to use Japanese cartridges in the cartridge slot, and you won't be able to do download play with any other console except for fellow Japanese 3DSs. Simply put, unless you're fluent in Japanese, you're not going to find much use with this. You're not going to be able to play any games or use pretty much anything else without a translator. That said, there are things that you can do to change it. Enter hacking your 3DS. Hacking your 3DS is something that's definitely not for everyone, but there are some great guides online that have step-by-step instructions that were, for me at least, pretty easy to follow on how to get it done. In doing so, you'll be able to make this thing pretty much as close to an American one as you'd want to hope for. Now, as a brief disclaimer, do not hack it in order to pirate games. Do not pirate games. That being said, there's a lot more to hacking a 3DS than downloading games. For instance, there's an application that will allow you to change any game you want's location and language to whichever country you choose. For instance, you can change it to USA and you can change it to English, even if it's a Japanese game. Unfortunately, the system menus and such will still be in Japanese, but I think you can navigate those pretty well for how often you need to use it, and most of them are pretty straightforward. The only way I know around this is if you physically or digitally region swap the device. Both of those options being not so great for various reasons, I would personally just stick with this for how easy it is. At the end of the day though, you're going to be able to play pretty much every single game you have, I believe including American cartridges, on the 3DS in English with your original language, and for me, that's more than good enough. There are still going to be some things that you're not going to be able to fix with this method. For instance, download play probably isn't going to work for 3DS games. But if you both have the game, your version is now American. So if it has online play or if it has local play in the game, you'll be able to play together. For everything else, like I said, I believe you can use your American games now with the cartridges, or you can hop on the eShop, the Japanese one, in order to get Japanese games, which you can then turn to the American games. I understand if not everybody wants to go through all this effort, but for me personally, how much money I'm saving to do this free upgrade for my device was more than worth getting a Japanese 3DS for, and I found it really fun to mess around with it and to download all this stuff, so it was a win-win. I feel that at the end of the day, between the IPS displays, its general condition, the price I got it for, and the fixes I was able to find in order to play games, I am more than pleased with my Japanese 3DS, and it's certainly worth considering, I feel, if you're in the market for one. In the end, my 3DS cost me about $150, which if I were to find an American one in this quality and with those screens, I could easily spend double trying to find one. So if you're looking for a good deal on a great system and are okay with putting in some work to make it more user-friendly, I would certainly suggest checking out the Japanese 3DS line. This has been Jace from the J&Z podcast, and you know how all the other YouTubers are like, only 60% of my viewers are subscribers. Well, we're sitting at a cool 0.8%. So if we can get that bad boy up to 1% of our viewers subscribed, that would make my day. So please like and subscribe. Thank you so much for watching and have a great rest of your day.